I took my son-in-law's phone for repairs. The tech, an old friend, pulled me aside in a panic. "Cancel your cards and run away now." Confused, I asked why. He turned the screen toward me and the horrifying truth I saw instantly froze my blood. The fluorescent lights in Tech Repair Plus hummed softly as I waited at the counter. Kevin's phone wrapped carefully in my hand. It was a simple errand, really. My son-in-law had cracked his screen and asked if I could drop it off on my way to the grocery store. I'd agreed immediately, happy to help. That's what family does for each other. I had no idea that this simple errand was about to expose a betrayal so deep, so calculated, that it would shake the foundation of everything I believed about trust and family. Marcus Webb came out from the back room, and I smiled when I saw him. We'd known each other for 15 years, ever since he'd started attending the same church. He was a good man, married with 3 kids, always willing to help elderly parishioners with their technology problems. But the smile died on my face when I saw his expression. He was pale, his hands shaking slightly as he held Kevin's phone. "Dorothy," he said quietly, his voice tight with something that looked like fear, "I need you to come to the back, right now." "Is something wrong with the phone?" I asked, confused by his urgency. "Is it not fixable? Please, just come with me." He led me to the back room, away from the other customers, and closed the door. His hands were trembling as he set the phone down on the workbench. "Dorothy, I need you to listen to me very carefully." His voice was shaking now. "Cancel your credit cards, all of them, right now, and you need to call your bank immediately." My heart started pounding. "Marcus, what are you talking about? What's going on?" When I powered up the phone to check the screen damage, I saw, "Dorothy, this phone has access to your bank accounts, your credit cards, your personal information. And someone has been stealing from you. A lot. That's impossible. Kevin wouldn't." "It's Kevin's phone, Dorothy. I'm looking at his banking app right now. And it's not his accounts he's accessing. It's yours." He turned the phone screen toward me. I stared at the screen, my brain unable to process what my eyes were seeing. There in the banking app were my accounts. My checking account. My savings account. But the balances were all wrong. My checking account showed $247. It should have been over $8,000. My savings account showed $1,892. It should have been over $35,000. "That can't be right," I whispered. "There must be a mistake." "There's no mistake." Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. He tapped the screen, showing me the transaction history. "Look, these are all transfers out, unauthorized withdrawals. And Dorothy," he swiped to another screen, "he's applied for loans in your name, credit cards. He's been systematically draining your accounts for months." The room started spinning. I grabbed the edge of the workbench to steady myself. "How much?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Marcus scrolled through screens, his face growing grimmer. "From what I can see just in this app, Dorothy, he's taken at least $47,000 from your accounts. And there's another $30,000 in debt he's created in your name. Loans, credit cards. You're liable for almost $80,000 because of him." I couldn't breathe. The air in the room felt too thick, too hot. My vision narrowed to a tunnel, and I heard a strange buzzing in my ears. "Dorothy, sit down." Marcus pulled over a chair and gently pushed me into it. "Put your head between your knees. Breathe slowly." I followed his instructions mechanically, my mind reeling. Kevin, my son-in-law, the man married to my daughter Lisa, the father of my 2 grandchildren, the man who'd been living in my house for 8 months, who helped me with groceries, who drove me to doctor's appointments, who'd called me mom and hugged me every morning. That Kevin had stolen $77,000 from me. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why would he do this?" "I don't know, Dorothy, but we need to act fast. He doesn't know you know yet. The minute he realizes his phone is going to expose him, he might run, or he might try to do more damage." I lifted my head, and something inside me shifted. The shock was still there, the betrayal still felt like a knife in my chest, but underneath it something harder was forming. Something cold and focused. I was Dorothy Chen. I'd been a nurse for 42 years before I retired. I'd worked in emergency rooms, in intensive care units, in situations where clear thinking under pressure meant the difference between life and death. I'd raised 2 children after my husband died young. I'd survived cancer. I'd buried the love of my life after 48 years of marriage. I was not a helpless old woman, and I was not going to let this destroy me. Show me everything, I said, my voice steadier now. Every transaction, every loan, every credit card. I need to see it all. Marcus looked at me with something like admiration. Okay, but Dorothy, this is going to be hard to see. He was right. It was worse than hard. He showed me how Kevin had started small, 8 months ago right after he'd moved into my house. A $200 transfer labeled reimbursement for groceries. Then $150 for pharmacy supplies. Small amounts that I'd never questioned because Kevin had been buying those things for me, or so I'd thought. But the amounts had grown. $500 here, $800 there, $2,000 for emergency car repair that he'd told me about, that I'd believed he'd paid for himself. Then came the loans. A $5,000 personal loan from my credit union. A $10,000 loan from an online lender. Another $8,000 from a payday loan company. And the credit cards. 3 of them, all opened in my name over the past 4 months. Combined, they had $28,000 in charges. Electronics, restaurant bills, cash advances, online gambling sites. Gambling. I stared at the charges. Kevin has a gambling problem? Looks like it, Marcus said grimly. These charges online poker sports betting sites. Dorothy, he's been using your money to feed an addiction. I thought about the past 8 months. Kevin had moved in with my daughter Lisa and their 2 children, Emma, 12 and Michael 9, after losing his job. Or that's what he'd told us. He was job hunting. He said, he needed to save money, get back on his feet. Lisa had asked if they could stay with me temporarily, and I'd agreed immediately. I'd been thrilled, actually. After my husband Tom died 3 years ago, the house had been so quiet. Having my daughter and grandchildren around had brought life back into these walls. And Kevin had seemed like such a help. He'd taken over some of the household tasks. He'd driven me to doctor's appointments when Lisa was at work. He'd picked up prescriptions. He'd helped me sort through my mail, pay my bills. Oh God, the bills. Marcus? He had access to everything, I said slowly. He helped me with my bills. He knew all my account numbers, my passwords. How did that happen? Marcus asked gently. I closed my eyes, remembering, about 5 months ago he suggested I set up online banking. He said it would be easier than writing checks, that I could track my money better. He helped me set it up on my tablet. And then he said, my voice broke. He said he'd add the accounts to his phone too, just in case I needed help. In case I had questions. He said it was for emergencies. Did you give him permission to access your accounts? I thought I was just adding him as someone who could help me check balances, but there was paperwork from the bank, making him an authorized user. I didn't read it carefully. I trusted him. Marcus's jaw tightened. Dorothy, this is elder fraud. This is identity theft. This is a serious crime. You need to call the police right now. I need to call my daughter first. I said, Lisa doesn't know. She can't know. Kevin must have been hiding this from her too. Are you sure? Marcus asked carefully. Sometimes in these cases, Lisa is my daughter, I know her. If she knew her husband was stealing from me, she would have stopped it. She would have told me. She's a victim here too. But even as I said it, doubt niggled at the back of my mind. Lisa had been asking me lately about investing in Kevin's business idea. She'd been pressuring me a little, saying how much it would mean to their family. Had she known where the startup money was supposed to come from? No. I couldn't think like that. Not yet. Can you make copies of all of this evidence? I asked Marcus. Already done. I backed up everything the minute I saw what was happening. I'll email you the files and put them on a flash drive. But Dorothy, you need to act fast. Cancel your cards, freeze your accounts, call the police. I will. But I need to do this carefully. I need to talk to my lawyer first. I need to understand all my options. Your lawyer? My late husband's best friend, George Patterson. He handled our estate planning. He'll know what to do. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called George. He answered on the second ring. Dorothy, how are you? George, I need to see you immediately. It's urgent. Can I come to your office now? Something in my voice must have conveyed the seriousness. Of course. I'll clear my afternoon. What's happened? My son-in-law has been stealing from me. A lot. I just found out. I have evidence. I need legal advice before I do anything. Oh my God. Dorothy, come now. I'll be waiting. I turned to Marcus. Thank you. If you hadn't caught this. I almost didn't look. Marcus admitted. Normally I just replaced the screen. But the phone unlocked automatically when I powered it on, and the banking app was open. I saw your name and recognized it. Dorothy, you got lucky. If he'd had a passcode, if the screen had locked, I never would have seen any of this. Lucky. I'd gotten lucky that my son-in-law was careless with his phone security. That was the only reason I'd discovered that the man I'd welcomed into my home, the man I'd trusted with my grandchildren, the man who called me mom, was systematically destroying my financial security. Can I take the phone? I asked. Take pictures of everything first, just in case. But yes, technically it's evidence now. Though we should probably tell Detective Mills. She goes to our church too. She handles fraud cases. George can advise me on that. But yes, take pictures. Document everything. While Marcus photographed every screen, every transaction, every piece of evidence on Kevin's phone, I called my bank, First National Bank. How may I help you? This is Dorothy Chen. I need to freeze all of my accounts immediately. I'm a victim of fraud. I'm sorry to hear that, Mrs. Chen. Let me verify your identity. I went through the security questions, my voice mechanical. When I was finally connected to the fraud department, I explained the situation. Mrs. Chen, I'm showing that you have an authorized user on your accounts, a Kevin Martinez. Yes. I need him removed immediately. He's been stealing from me. I understand, however, since he's an authorized user, the transactions he made were technically legal. He had permission to access your accounts. My blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'm saying that because you signed paperwork making him an authorized user, he had the legal right to make transactions. It's not technically theft if he was authorized, but I didn't authorize him to steal $47,000. I authorized him to help me check my balance. I understand your frustration, Mrs. Chen, but from the bank's perspective, he was acting within his authorized capacity. That said, we can freeze your accounts right now and remove his access going forward. And you can file a police report for fraud. If he was acting beyond what you intended, that's a criminal matter. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone. But I forced myself to stay calm. Freeze the accounts. Remove his access. Do it now. Done. Mrs. Chen, your accounts are frozen. I'm also flagging your file for fraud investigation. You'll need to come in and file paperwork. But for now, no one can access your accounts, including you. What about the loans he took out in my name? You'll need to dispute those individually with each lender. I'm sorry, Mrs. Chen. This is a difficult situation. After I hung up, I called each credit card company. 2 of the 3 cards agreed to freeze the accounts and investigate the fraud. The third one said I'd have to file a police report first. By the time I finished all the calls, an hour had passed. Marcus handed me Kevin's phone, now in a plastic evidence bag, along with a flash drive. Everything is backed up. Every text message, every transaction, every photo. Dorothy, you're going to need this for court. Court, I repeated numbly. I'm going to have to take my daughter's husband to court. He stole from you. He committed fraud. He deserves to face consequences. My grandchildren are going to see their father arrested. Marcus's expression softened. I know this is hard, but Dorothy, if you don't pursue this, he gets away with it. And he might do it to someone else. Probably will do it to someone else. He was right. I knew he was right. I drove to George Patterson's office in a daze. George was 75, semi-retired, but still took on cases for old friends. He'd been Tom's best friend since college. He'd stood beside me at Tom's funeral, had helped me navigate the estate paperwork, had checked on me regularly in the years since. When I walked into his office, he took one look at my face and immediately got up to hug me. Dorothy, tell me everything. I told him. I showed him the evidence Marcus had compiled. I explained how Kevin had gained access to my accounts, how he'd been stealing for months, how I'd just discovered it by pure chance. George's face grew darker with each detail. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and pressed his fingers to his temples. Dorothy, this is bad. This is very, very bad. But it's not hopeless. The bank said because he was an authorized user. The bank is partially correct. He had legal access to your accounts, but what he did with that access is still fraud. He obtained your authorization under false pretenses. He lied about his intentions. That's fraudulent inducement. And the loans he took out in your name, those are identity theft. Pure and simple. You didn't authorize those. So what do? First, we file a police report. This is a criminal matter. Second, we need to review your complete financial situation. Kevin had access to your checking and savings accounts. But what else do you have? What did Tom leave you? The house? The life insurance? Some investment accounts? George pulled up his computer. Let me look at your file. Tom set up a trust. Remember, after he died, everything went into that trust to protect you. I'd forgotten. In the grief and chaos after Tom's death, I'd signed papers that George had prepared, but I hadn't fully understood them all. Tom had always handled our finances. I trusted him to set things up correctly. George pulled up the documents and started reading. After a few minutes he looked up with something like relief. Dorothy, Kevin didn't get everything, not even close. What do you mean? Tom set up an irrevocable trust for your benefit. The house is in the trust, the investment accounts are in the trust, the life insurance proceeds went into the trust. The only accounts that were in your name alone were your checking and savings accounts, the ones you used for daily expenses. I don't understand. The trust holds approximately $800,000. The house which is paid off is worth about $400,000. Investment accounts total $300,000. The remainder is in a money market account. Kevin had no access to any of that. He couldn't access it because it's held in trust. I stared at him. $800,000? Yes. Tom was very successful as an engineer. He invested wisely. He wanted to make sure you'd be taken care of for the rest of your life. And he set it up so that no one could take advantage of you. The trust is ironclad. You're the beneficiary, but the accounts are managed by a corporate trustee. No one can access that money except through proper procedures. So Kevin only got what was in your checking and savings accounts, which is still $77,000 including the fraudulent debts, which is terrible. But Dorothy, he didn't get everything. He doesn't even know about the trust, does he? I thought back over the past 8 months. Kevin had never asked about my complete financial situation. He'd focused on my checking account, my savings account, the accounts I used to pay bills. I don't think so. I never mentioned it. I'd almost forgotten about it myself. Good. That gives us leverage. He probably thinks he's bled you dry. He probably thinks you have nothing left. But you're financially secure, Dorothy. The trust provides you with enough income to live comfortably for the rest of your life. You'll get the money back that he stole, eventually through restitution if he's convicted. But you're not destitute. You're not going to lose your house. You're going to be okay. I felt tears sliding down my face, not from sadness but from relief. I'd been so terrified in that repair shop thinking Kevin had destroyed everything Tom and I had built together. But Tom had protected me, even from beyond the grave. What do I do now? I asked. Now we go to the police. I know Detective Sarah Mills in the fraud division. Let me call her. 20 minutes later, Detective Mills arrived at George's office. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and professional. George had briefed her on the phone, but she wanted to hear everything directly from me. I told her the whole story again. She took notes, asked questions, examined the evidence Marcus had provided. Mrs. Chen, this is clear-cut fraud and identity theft, multiple felonies. The problem is that some of the transactions are in a gray area because he was an authorized user. But the loans in your name, those are unambiguous. You didn't apply for those loans. He forged your signature. That's identity theft. What happens now? I'll open an investigation. I'll get a warrant for his financial records, his phone records. We'll build a case, and then we'll arrest him. When? Depends on how fast we can compile everything. A few days, maybe a week. He's living in my house, I said, with my daughter and grandchildren. What do I do until then? Do I just pretend everything is normal? Can you do that? Detective Mills asked gently. Can you go home and act like nothing happened? I thought about it. Could I look Kevin in the eye knowing what he'd done and pretend I didn't know? Could I have dinner with him, watch him interact with my grandchildren and not say anything? I don't know, I admitted. There's another option, George said. You confront your daughter first. Tell Lisa what happened. See if she knew anything. And if she didn't, she can help you decide how to handle Kevin. What if she knew? I asked quietly. What if she was in on it? Then you'll know, Detective Mills said, and we'll include her in the investigation. But Mrs. Chen, in my experience, these cases usually involve one perpetrator and multiple victims. It's more likely that your daughter has no idea what her husband has been doing. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. Okay. I said. I'll talk to Lisa, but not at the house. I don't want Kevin there when I tell her. Good idea, George said. Call her. Ask her to meet you somewhere. Tell her you need to talk about something important. Just the two of you. I pulled out my phone and called Lisa. She was at work. She was an elementary school teacher, but she answered. Hi, Mom. Everything okay? Lisa, I need to talk to you. It's important. Can you meet me somewhere after work? Just you, not Kevin. Is everything all right? You sound upset. I'll explain when I see you. Can you come to Rosewood Cafe at 4:00? Sure, Mom. I'll be there. Are you sure you're okay? I'll see you at 4:00, honey. After I hung up, Detective Mills said, I want to be there, not at the meeting but nearby. In case Kevin shows up, in case there's a problem. George, you should be there too. Agreed, George said. Dorothy, we're going to support you through this. You're not alone. But as I sat in George's office, waiting for 4:00 p.m., I felt crushingly alone. The man I trusted had betrayed me. My financial security had been violated, and I was about to tell my daughter that her husband was a criminal who would likely go to prison. At 3:45, George and I drove separately to Rosewood Cafe. Detective Mills was already there, sitting at a corner table in plain clothes. George took a table near the back. I sat at a table by the window where Lisa would see me when she arrived. She walked in at 4:03 still wearing her teaching clothes, khakis and a colorful cardigan. She looked worried as she approached. Mom, what's going on? You scared me. Sit down, honey, I need to tell you something, and it's going to be very difficult to hear. Her face went pale. Are you sick? Is it cancer again? No, it's about Kevin. Kevin? What about him? I opened my laptop. George had helped me transfer all of Marcus's evidence files and turned the screen toward her. I took Kevin's phone to the repair shop this morning. The technician found something on it. Kevin has been accessing my bank accounts. He's been stealing from me for months. Lisa stared at the screen. I watched her face as she processed what she was seeing. Confusion first, then disbelief, then horror. That's not possible. There must be a mistake. There's no mistake, Lisa. Look at the transactions. Look at the dates. He's taken $47,000 from my checking and savings accounts. He's also taken out loans in my name, $23,000 worth, and he's opened credit cards in my name and maxed them out. Another $30,000 in debt. Total damage is $77,000. Lisa was shaking her head, still staring at the screen. No, Kevin wouldn't do this. He wouldn't steal from you, from anyone. Look at the evidence, Lisa. It's all there. The banking app on his phone. Transactions going back 8 months. It started the week after you all moved in with me. But he's been job hunting. He's been going to interviews, he said. Her voice broke. He said he was trying so hard to find work. Has he brought home any paychecks? Has he shown you any job offers? Lisa's silence was answer enough. Lisa, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Did you know about this? Her head snapped up, tears streaming down her face. What? No. Mom, no. I would never. How could you even think? Then explain why you've been pressuring me to invest in Kevin's business idea. Because he told me. She stopped, her face crumpling. Oh my God, there is no business idea, is there? I don't know, but Lisa, where did you think the startup money was coming from? He said he had investors lined up. He said he just needed a small amount from family to show commitment. He wanted to ask you for $10,000. I told him it was too much, that we shouldn't ask you for that much. But he kept pushing, saying it was an investment in our family's future. He's been gambling, Lisa. Look at these charges. Online poker. Sports betting. He has an addiction. Lisa stared at the screen again, scrolling through the evidence with shaking hands. This can't be real. This can't be Kevin. We've been married for 14 years. I know him. He wouldn't. He did, honey. The evidence is right there. She looked up at me with devastated eyes. What do I do, Mom? What do we do? First, you need to tell me everything you know. Has Kevin been acting strange? Secretive? Has money been disappearing from your accounts too? Lisa closed her eyes. Yes. I thought I was going crazy. Money kept disappearing from our joint account. Small amounts but regular. I asked Kevin about it and he said I must be forgetting purchases, that I should keep better track of my spending. He made me feel like I was the one making mistakes. That's called gaslighting. He was stealing from you too and making you doubt your own memory. Last month I found betting slips in his coat pocket. Sports betting. When I confronted him, he said they were old from before we got married, that he'd found them while cleaning out his old stuff. I believed him. What else? He's been staying up late. I thought he was job hunting online, but now he was probably gambling, and he's been so irritable lately. Snapping at the kids at me. I thought it was stress from being unemployed. It was probably withdrawal from gambling or stress about getting caught. Lisa put her head in her hands. Mom? I'm so sorry. I brought him into your house. I asked you to take us in, and he's been stealing from you this whole time. Lisa, this is not your fault. You didn't know. But I should have known. I'm his wife. How did I not see this? Because he's very good at lying. Because you trusted him. Because that's what we do with people we love. We trust them until they give us a reason not to. What happens now? Lisa asked. George is here, I said, nodding toward his table. He's my attorney, and Detective Mills is over there. I indicated her table from the police fraud division. We're going to press charges. Kevin is going to be arrested. Lisa's face went white. Arrested? He committed fraud, Lisa. Identity theft, multiple felonies. He could go to prison for years. But what about Emma and Michael? What do I tell them? You tell them the truth. Age appropriately. But the truth. Their father made terrible choices and has to face consequences. They're going to be devastated. I know, but Lisa, would you rather they grow up thinking this behavior is acceptable, that stealing from family is okay, that there are no consequences for crimes? Lisa wiped her eyes. No, you're right. I don't know how we got here. 6 months ago, everything seemed fine. We were a normal family. When did Kevin lose his job? A year ago. He said he was laid off. But Mom, I'm realizing now I never saw any layoff paperwork. No severance package. No unemployment benefits. He said it was too painful to talk about, so I didn't push. Lisa, I need you to think carefully. Is there anything else I should know? Any other money missing? Any other debts Kevin might have created? She was quiet for a long moment. I need to check our accounts, our credit cards. I need to see if he's been stealing from us too, or if there are other debts I don't know about. Do that. Document everything. You might need it for divorce proceedings. Divorce. Lisa said, the word like she'd never heard it before. I'm going to have to divorce him. Probably, yes. How do I go home tonight? How do I face him? He's going to know something is wrong the minute I walk in. Where is Kevin now? He said he had a job interview this afternoon, but that was probably a lie too. Here's what we're going to do, I said. You're going to go home and act as normal as possible. Don't confront him yet. Don't let him know you know. Detective Mills needs time to build her case, to get warrants. If Kevin realizes we know, he might run. I don't know if I can do that. George had come over to our table, with Detective Mills following. Lisa, I'm George Patterson. I handled your father's estate. This is Detective Sarah Mills. Lisa looked up at them with red swollen eyes. Is my husband really going to prison? Detective Mills sat down. Mrs. Martinez, your husband has committed serious crimes. Based on the evidence I've seen, yes, he's likely facing significant prison time if convicted. But right now, I need your help. Can you go home and act normal for a few days while I complete the investigation? I don't know. Think about it this way. Detective Mills said gently. If he suspects you know, he might empty any remaining accounts you have access to. He might take out more loans. He might disappear. The best thing you can do for yourself and your children is to act normal until we can arrest him and secure all the evidence. How long? Lisa asked. 3 days, maybe 4. I'll move as fast as I can. Lisa looked at me. Mom, I'm so sorry for all of this. I can't believe. I never thought Kevin would. I know, honey. Neither did I. Where are you going to stay? You can't go home if he's there. I hadn't thought about that. My house. The house Tom and I had built our life in, the house where we'd raised our children, was currently occupied by a man who'd been systematically stealing from me. I'll stay with George and his wife for a few days. I decided. I'll tell Kevin I stopped. What would I tell Kevin about why I wasn't coming home? Tell him you're visiting an old friend, George suggested. Tell him she's ill and needs company. That'll buy us a few days. Lisa stood up on shaky legs. I need to go home. I need to check our accounts. And I need to figure out how to look at my husband without screaming at him. After she left, I sat with George and Detective Mills, planning the next steps. Detective Mills would get warrants for Kevin's bank records, his phone records, his credit report. George would help me file paperwork to dispute the fraudulent loans and credit card charges, and I would stay away from my house until Kevin was arrested. That night, lying in George and his wife Martha's guest room, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the past 8 months, how blind I'd been, how Kevin had played me perfectly. He'd started small. He'd been helpful, kind, attentive. He'd made himself indispensable. He'd gained my trust slowly, methodically, and then he'd used that trust to systematically rob me. I thought about all the times he'd helped me with my bills. He'd been checking to see how much money I had, planning his thefts, covering his tracks. I thought about the times he'd driven me to the bank. He'd probably been watching me enter my PIN, memorizing my security information. I thought about how he'd suggested online banking for my convenience. It had been for his convenience, for easier access to steal. Every kind gesture had been calculated. Every helpful act had been part of a con. The next morning, Lisa called me. "Mom, I checked our accounts. He's been stealing from us too. About $15,000 over the past year. I thought I was bad at managing money. He made me think I was irresponsible, that I was overspending, but it was him. He was taking the money and gaslighting me about it. I'm sorry, honey." I also found more betting slips, hidden in his car. Hundreds of dollars in losses, just in the past month. "Mom, I think he has a serious gambling addiction. I think that's where all the money is going." That doesn't excuse what he did. I know, but it explains it. He's sick, Mom. He needs help. He needs to face consequences first, then he can get help in prison. Lisa was quiet. I can't believe I'm going to be a single mother. I can't believe my kids are going to grow up with their father in prison. You're strong, Lisa. You'll get through this. We both will. Over the next 3 days I stayed at George's house. I told Kevin via text that my friend Margaret was ill, and I was staying with her for a few days. He texted back, "No problem, Mom. Take your time, we'll hold down the fort." Mom? He was still calling me Mom. Still pretending to care. Detective Mills worked quickly. She got warrants, pulled bank records, built her case. On the 3rd day she called me. "We're ready. We're going to arrest Kevin tomorrow morning. I want you and Lisa there when it happens. You'll need to be present to reclaim your house." Lisa knows. I called her. She's ready. She's going to take the kids to school early. Before we arrive, she doesn't want them to see their father arrested. That's probably wise. "Mrs. Chen, I need to prepare you. Kevin might get violent when he realizes what's happening. Some people do. We'll have officers there, but it could get ugly." I understand. That night I barely slept again. Tomorrow the man who'd stolen from me would face justice. Tomorrow my daughter's marriage would officially end. Tomorrow my grandchildren's lives would change forever. But tomorrow, I would also reclaim my home, my security, my peace of mind. The next morning, George drove me to my house. It was 6:30 a.m. 2 police cars were already parked down the street. Detective Mills met us at the curb. "Lisa took the kids to school 20 minutes ago," she said. "Kevin is still inside alone. Are you ready?" I nodded. I couldn't speak. We walked to my front door, my door to my house, and Detective Mills knocked loudly. "Police, open up." After a moment, Kevin opened the door. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, clearly just woken up. When he saw me standing there with police officers, his face went through a rapid series of expressions: confusion, recognition, fear. "Dorothy? What?" "Kevin Martinez," Detective Mills said formally. "You're under arrest for identity theft, fraud, and forgery. You have the right to remain silent." Kevin's eyes locked on mine as the detective continued reading him his rights. "Dorothy, I can explain. This is a misunderstanding. I was going to pay you back." "You stole $7,000 from me," I said, my voice cold. "You lied to me for 8 months. You lived in my house, ate my food, called me Mom, and the entire time you were robbing me blind. I have a problem. I need help, Dorothy. Please." "You're going to get help. In prison." The officers cuffed him and led him toward the police car. Kevin was still talking. Still trying to explain. Still making excuses. I watched him go without a shred of sympathy. After the police car drove away, Lisa pulled up in her own car. She got out slowly, her face puffy from crying. Is he gone? She asked. Yes. What happens now? Detective Mills answered. He'll be arraigned later today. Bail will be set. Given the seriousness of the charges and the flight risk, I'm hoping the judge denies bail, but we'll see. What do I do? Lisa asked. Do I post bail if they set one? That's up to you, I said. But Lisa, if you post bail, he'll come right back here, to my house. Are you ready to live with him after everything he's done? No. But he's my husband. He's the father of my children. He's also a criminal who stole from his wife, his children, and his wife's mother. Don't let guilt or obligation cloud your judgment. Lisa nodded slowly. You're right. I won't post bail. I need time to think. The kids need stability, and I need to figure out what comes next. What came next was a blur of legal proceedings. Kevin was arraigned and bail was set at $50,000. Lisa didn't post it. He stayed in jail. Detective Mills continued her investigation and found even more evidence of fraud. Kevin had stolen from his previous employer, which was the real reason he'd lost his job. He'd been fired for embezzlement, not laid off. He'd managed to avoid criminal charges then by agreeing to repay the money and resign quietly. But he'd never repaid it. Instead, he'd started stealing from me. The prosecutor filed formal charges, 3 counts of identity theft, 5 counts of fraud, 2 counts of forgery. If convicted on all counts, Kevin could face up to 15 years in prison. George helped me file all the paperwork to dispute the fraudulent loans and credit card charges. It was a nightmare of bureaucracy, but slowly, methodically, we got each debt removed from my credit report and my liability. The banks were surprisingly helpful once they saw the police reports and the evidence. They'd rather write off the losses than go through the bad publicity of having enabled elder fraud. 2 weeks after Kevin's arrest, Lisa filed for divorce. The proceedings were fast and uncontested. Kevin from his jail cell signed the papers without argument. He knew he had no leverage, no ground to stand on. A month after the arrest, I was sitting in George's office reviewing my financial recovery when Detective Mills called. Mrs. Chen, I wanted to give you an update. We've recovered about $23,000 of the stolen money. It was in Kevin's personal account, which has been frozen. The rest is gone. Gambled away mostly, but at least you'll get something back. What about the trial? His lawyer is pushing for a plea deal. Kevin knows the evidence is overwhelming. He's willing to plead guilty to avoid a trial. The prosecutor is offering 8 years with possibility of parole after 6. 8 years, I repeated. It's a fair offer given the charges. If he went to trial and lost, he could get 15. But I wanted to check with you. As the victim, you have a right to give a statement before the plea is accepted. Do you want to address the court? I thought about it. Did I want to stand in front of Kevin and tell him what he'd done to me? Did I want to look him in the eye and make him hear how his actions had affected me? Yes, I said. I want to give a statement. The plea hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. I spent those weeks preparing what I wanted to say. I wrote and rewrote my statement, trying to find the right words to convey the betrayal, the violation, the damage Kevin had done. On the day of the hearing, George, Lisa, and I arrived at the courthouse together. We sat in the courtroom, waiting for the proceedings to begin. Kevin was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed. He looked thinner, older. When he saw us, he looked away quickly. The judge reviewed the plea agreement. Kevin pleaded guilty to all charges. Then the judge looked at me. Mrs. Chen, I understand you'd like to make a victim impact statement. Yes, Your Honor. I stood up and walked to the podium. I'd brought my written statement, but I didn't need to look at it. The words were burned into my memory. Your Honor, my name is Dorothy Chen. I'm 72 years old. 8 months ago, I welcomed my daughter, my son-in-law, and my grandchildren into my home. They'd fallen on hard times, and I wanted to help. That's what family does. What I didn't know was that my son-in-law, Kevin Martinez, wasn't interested in my help. He was interested in my money. Kevin spent 8 months systematically stealing from me. He gained my trust by being helpful, by driving me to appointments, by offering to help me with my bills. He suggested I set up online banking for convenience. He became an authorized user on my accounts for emergencies. And then he stole $77,000 from me. He took money from my checking account, my savings account. He applied for loans in my name. He opened credit cards in my name and maxed them out. All while living in my house, eating my food, and calling me mom. The financial damage is one thing, But the emotional damage is something else entirely. He violated my trust in the deepest way possible. He made me doubt my own judgment. He made me feel like a fool. My late husband worked his entire life to make sure I'd be financially secure. He built a good life for us, saved carefully, invested wisely. He died 3 years ago believing I'd be taken care of. Kevin tried to destroy that security. He tried to steal everything my husband had worked for. Fortunately, my husband was wise. He'd set up protections that Kevin couldn't access. So while Kevin did terrible damage, he didn't destroy me financially, but he did destroy my peace of mind. He destroyed my sense of safety in my own home. He destroyed my ability to trust. Your Honor, Kevin has a gambling addiction. I understand that. Addiction is a disease. But that doesn't excuse what he did. He made a choice. Every single day for 8 months to steal from me. He chose to betray me. He chose to violate my trust. I'm here today to tell the court that I believe Kevin should face the full consequences of his actions. Not just for me, but for every elderly person who might be his next victim. Because if we don't hold people accountable for elder fraud, it will continue to happen. I'm 72 years old. I survived raising 2 children alone after my husband died young. I survived cancer. I survived burying the love of my life. I will survive this too. But I want Kevin to know that what he did was not okay. That elder fraud is not a victimless crime. That stealing from family is one of the deepest betrayals imaginable. Thank you, Your Honor. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. I saw Lisa wiping tears from her eyes. I saw Kevin's head bowed, his shoulders shaking. The judge looked at Kevin. Mr. Martinez, do you have anything to say? Kevin stood slowly. I'm sorry. His voice was barely audible. I'm so sorry, I have a problem. I need help. But that doesn't excuse what I did. Dorothy, Mrs. Chen, you trusted me and I betrayed you. You welcomed me into your home and I stole from you. There's no excuse for that. I'm sorry. The judge was silent for a long moment. Mr. Martinez, I've reviewed the evidence in this case. The level of planning, the systematic nature of the fraud, the duration of the criminal activity. All of these factors indicate this was not an impulsive act. This was calculated, deliberate theft from a vulnerable victim. However, I note that you've pleaded guilty, sparing Mrs. Chen the trauma of a trial. I note that you've expressed remorse. And I note that you have a diagnosable addiction that contributed to this behavior. Therefore, I'm accepting the plea agreement. You're sentenced to 8 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole after 6 years. You'll also be required to pay restitution to Mrs. Chen in the amount of $77,000, to be paid from any assets or earnings you may have now or in the future. Additionally, upon your release, you'll be on probation for 5 years. During that time, you're prohibited from having any contact with Mrs. Chen or any member of her family except through your attorney. You're also required to participate in gambling addiction treatment. I hope, Mr. Martinez, that you use your time in prison to address your addiction and to truly understand the harm you've caused. Court is adjourned. The bailiff led Kevin away. He didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, Lisa hugged me tightly. Thank you, Mom, for everything, for not giving up on us, for not blaming me. I could never blame you, honey. You're as much a victim in this as I am. What happens now? Now you rebuild your life. You focus on Emma and Michael. You move forward. What about you? Me? I thought about it. I reclaim my house. I reclaim my peace. And I figure out how to trust again. That night, back in my own house, finally mine alone again, I sat in Tom's study and looked at the financial documents that had protected me from complete ruin. Tom had known, somehow he'd known that I might need protection. He'd set up the trust to make sure that no matter what happened I'd be okay. Thank you, I whispered to his memory. You took care of me, even after you were gone. Over the following months I slowly rebuilt my sense of security. The bank reimbursed the stolen funds once Kevin was convicted. The fraudulent loans were discharged. My credit was repaired. Lisa and the kids moved into a smaller apartment. It was hard for them financially, but they managed. Emma and Michael struggled with their father's imprisonment, but Lisa got them into therapy and they began to heal. 6 months after Kevin's sentencing, I did something unexpected. I started volunteering at the senior center, teaching classes on financial security and fraud prevention. My name is Dorothy Chen, I told the first class. And I'm going to tell you a story about how my son-in-law stole $77,000 from me and how I caught him. I told them everything, the red flags I'd missed, the trust I'd given too easily, the importance of monitoring accounts, the value of having protected assets that can't be easily accessed. The most important lesson I learned, I told the class, is that trust should be earned, not automatic. Even with family, especially with family. I trusted Kevin because he was married to my daughter. I trusted him because he was the father of my grandchildren. I trusted him because he was helpful and kind, and called me mom. But trust based on relationship status isn't real trust. Real trust is built over time, through consistent honorable behavior. If I could go back, I would still have welcomed my daughter and grandchildren into my home. But I wouldn't have given Kevin access to my accounts. I wouldn't have made him an authorized user. I would have maintained financial boundaries. And that's what I want you all to understand. Loving someone doesn't mean giving them unlimited access to your financial life. Setting boundaries isn't mean or distrustful. It's smart. It's self-protection. I was lucky. My late husband had set up protections that saved me from complete financial ruin. But not everyone has that. Many elderly victims of financial abuse lose everything. So please, learn from my mistake. Protect your accounts, monitor your credit, don't give anyone, not your children, not your spouse, not your caregivers, unrestricted access to your money unless you're absolutely certain it's necessary and safe. And if something feels wrong, if money is disappearing, if someone is pressuring you to give them access, trust that feeling. Investigate. Ask questions. Don't let anyone make you feel paranoid or foolish for protecting yourself. After that first class, several elderly women approached me with their own stories. One woman's daughter had been forging checks. Another woman's grandson had stolen her credit cards. A third woman's home health aide had been making unauthorized withdrawals. I realized my story wasn't unique. Elder financial abuse was happening everywhere, all the time, and most victims were too ashamed to talk about it, too afraid of destroying family relationships, too confused about what to do. So I kept teaching classes, I kept telling my story, I kept encouraging other victims to come forward, to report the abuse, to protect themselves. A year after Kevin's sentencing, I was invited to speak at a state legislative hearing about elder fraud prevention. I testified about my experience and advocated for stronger protections for elderly victims. The current laws make it too easy for family members to exploit their elderly relatives. I told the committee, we need better safeguards. We need more oversight. We need to make financial institutions more accountable for allowing fraud to occur. I was lucky because my husband had set up a trust that protected most of our assets. But what about elderly people who don't have those protections? What about people who trustingly give their children access to their accounts and then lose everything? We need to do better. We need to protect our most vulnerable citizens. The committee listened, they asked questions, they thanked me for my testimony, and 6 months later they passed new legislation requiring financial institutions to provide additional protections for elderly account holders. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough to stop all elder fraud. But it was something. It was progress. 2 years after Kevin's arrest, I was at the grocery store when I ran into Marcus, the tech guy who discovered the fraud on Kevin's phone. Dorothy, how are you? I've been thinking about you. I'm doing well, Marcus. Really well, actually. I heard you've been teaching classes, doing advocacy work. That's amazing. It started because of you, I said. If you hadn't looked at that phone, if you hadn't called me into the back room and shown me what Kevin was doing, I might never have found out. Or I wouldn't have found out until he'd stolen everything. I'm just glad I could help. How's your daughter? She's good. The divorce is final. She's rebuilding her life. The kids are doing better. It's been hard, but they're resilient. And Kevin? Still in prison. He'll be eligible for parole in 4 more years. I hope he's gotten treatment for his gambling addiction. I hope he's genuinely changed. But honestly, that's not my concern anymore. My concern is making sure what happened to me doesn't happen to other people. You're doing important work, Dorothy. I'm doing the only thing I can do, turning my pain into something useful. That night I sat in my living room, my reclaimed, secure, peaceful living room, and reflected on the past 2 years. Kevin had tried to destroy me. He'd stolen my money, violated my trust, and shattered my sense of security. He'd calculated that I was an easy target, a vulnerable elderly woman who could be manipulated and exploited. He'd been wrong. Yes, he'd stolen $77,000. Yes, he'd caused immense pain and disruption. Yes, he'd damaged relationships and destroyed his own family. But he hadn't destroyed me. I'd survived. I'd fought back. I'd held him accountable. I'd reclaimed my life and my home. And I'd turned my experience into advocacy that was helping protect other elderly people from similar abuse. I thought about Tom, about the protections he'd put in place that had saved me from financial ruin. I thought about Marcus, whose diligence and care had exposed the fraud. I thought about George, who'd guided me through the legal process. I thought about Detective Mills, who'd built the case that put Kevin in prison. I thought about Lisa, who'd had the courage to divorce Kevin and start over. I thought about Emma and Michael, who were learning that actions have consequences, even when those actions are committed by people you love. And I thought about all the elderly people who'd heard my story and felt empowered to check their own accounts, to set boundaries, to protect themselves. Kevin had given me an accidental gift. He'd shown me that I was stronger than I'd thought, that I could face betrayal and come out the other side, that I could turn victimization into advocacy. I was 72 years old. I was a widow. I was a mother and grandmother. I was a retired nurse who'd spent her career caring for others. And I was a survivor who refused to be silent about elder abuse. My phone rang. It was Lisa. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" "I'm good, honey. How are the kids?" "They're great." Emma made honor roll again. "Michael scored 2 goals in his soccer game today. We're doing okay, Mom. We're really okay." "I'm glad." "Mom, I was thinking tomorrow is Sunday. Can we come over for dinner? The kids miss seeing you regularly." "Of course. I'd love that." "Thanks, Mom. And Mom, thank you for everything, for being strong enough to do what needed to be done, for protecting yourself and protecting us, for teaching me that love doesn't mean accepting abuse." After we hung up, I smiled. My family was healing. My grandchildren were learning important lessons about integrity and consequences. My daughter was becoming stronger and more independent, and I was reclaiming the life that Kevin had tried to steal. I walked to my window and looked out at my garden, at the flowers Tom had planted years ago, at the life we'd built together in this house. "I'm okay, Tom," I said softly. "Thanks to you, I'm going to be okay." And I was, not just financially but emotionally and spiritually. I'd been tested in a way I never expected, betrayed in a way I never imagined, but I'd survived. I'd fought back. I'd won. I was Dorothy Chin. I was 72 years old, and I was nobody's victim. Not anymore. Not ever again.